In Japan, thousands of years ago, someone sculpted a human figure wearing what looks exactly like protective goggles on its face. Not sunglasses, not decoration. The whole figure seems to wear a suit with joints and panels, just like a modern spacesuit. And the most unsettling part, civilizations with zero contact with Japan drew the exact same type of being around that same era. Beings with helmets, beings from the sky, beings teaching humans the laws of the universe across 4 different continents. How is that possible? Statistical coincidence? Shared cultural memory? Or is something else going on that science can't explain? Today we go deep into that question. The most impossible cases, what science says, and what the real answer turns out to be. Because the mystery isn't where these beings came from. The real mystery is where the mind that created them actually came from. Let's start with a simple exercise. Imagine you've never traveled, never read a book, never left the culture of your own village. Now imagine you pick up a stone and carve the most powerful being you've seen, one from the sky who taught your people to build. What do you carve? Probably something human-shaped, maybe larger, maybe luminous, maybe holding some strange object in its hand. Now repeat that in 5 places: Sumer, Egypt, Mexico, Japan, Mali. No connection between them, no internet, no ships on any ocean. The result should be different every time. Each culture invents its own god, unique features, unrecognizable to everyone outside. But that's not what happened. The Sumerians described the Anunnaki, tall, luminous beings from the sky who taught humanity itself. The Maya described Kukulkan, a feathered serpent from the heavens carrying astronomical knowledge, far too precise for its time. And Japan? The Jomon people created the dog, figures archaeologists call gods, but that anyone today looks at and thinks, alien. 5 civilizations, 5 stories of sky beings, 5 strikingly similar depictions, and 0 contact between any of them, ever. Coincidence is a convenient word. But at some point, coincidence itself starts demanding a far better explanation than we've had. Let's focus on the hardest case to ignore: Japan, Jomon period, one of the oldest and most isolated cultures in human history. The Jomon lived on the Japanese archipelago for 10,000 years, no contact with China or any outside culture whatsoever. Between 1000 and 400 BC, they created the dog, humanoid clay figures unlike anything ever seen before or since. 18,000 dog across eastern Japan, every single one with the same strange recurring features. Not similar, identical. Enormous eyes almost like visors, elongated heads, bodies covered in patterns that look exactly like the seams on a modern suit. Archaeologists named the most iconic type Shikoki dog, light-blocking device, after the goggle-like eyes on every single face. Scholars say fertility talismans, symbols for safe births and good crops. That's a reasonable answer, and also an incomplete one. What it can't explain is why this fertility figure looks nothing like a human, and very much like gear for a hostile environment. The Dog appeared in the Jomon period, then vanished completely in the next, as if someone decided to change what was remembered. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in that same era, people were already painting helmeted figures on Saharan cave walls. If you're still here, you're exactly who'll love what comes next. It gets much stranger. Subscribe so you don't miss any of it. Now let's talk about the man who took all of this, threw it in the world's face, and sold 7 million copies doing exactly that. In 1968, Swiss hotel manager Erich von Däniken published a book no publisher wanted, rejected over and over again. The book was Chariots of the Gods. First edition, 7 million copies sold, a number that shocked the entire publishing world. The thesis: what if ancient gods weren't metaphors? What if they were actual visits from beings that came from another planet? Von Däniken linked the most striking archaeological cases into one narrative: the pyramids, Nazca, Palenque, and the Anunnaki. He asked a question no one could answer. How did people without advanced tools build things we still struggle to replicate today? Academia called it pseudoscience and fraud, exploitation of knowledge gaps to sell a fantasy. They weren't entirely wrong, they had a point. Von Däniken twisted translations and passed speculation as fact. His answers were wrong. His questions were not. Even the harshest critics admitted the questions were valid. The answers were wrong, not the curiosity behind all those questions. Carl Sagan said this idea deserved investigation before dismissal. And Sagan was the 20th century's greatest astronomer. Sagan didn't believe it, but he felt the question revealed something real about us. That distinction matters. Remember it well. But before we get there, we need to talk about the most famous case of all, the one that convinced millions something was wrong. In 1952, archaeologist Alberto Ruz opened a secret chamber inside the Temple of Inscriptions at Palenque, Mexico. At the center was an enormous sarcophagus covered by a carved stone lid, the tomb of King Pakal, who died in 683 CE, nearly 4 meters long. What was carved into it left archaeologists, artists, and physicists all frozen in the same expression. A reclined figure, hands as if on controls. Below it, flames. Around it, tubes and curved forms that looked mechanical in nature. Von Däniken looked at it in 1968 and said what millions thought when they saw it: a pilot inside a spacecraft. No internet. The image still spread globally. Magazines, documentaries, and university debates on every continent in the world. Archaeologists took time explaining, not for lack of an answer, but because the answer requires deep knowledge of Maya cosmology. Pakal is descending into Xibalba, the Maya underworld. The flames are the setting sun. The tubes around him are the world tree. Every detail parallels existing Maya art and texts. 2 epigraphers decoded every symbol on this lid and found 0 astronauts. There was no astronaut. There was a king dying and being reborn as the sun, the most important metaphor in all of Maya cosmology. But the theory didn't die with Palenque, because there was another case much harder to explain away with symbolic cosmology alone. Sumer, the world's oldest civilization with written records. Located in modern Iraq, flourished over 5,000 years ago. The Sumerians left thousands of cuneiform tablets about the Anunnaki, sky beings who descended from above to build civilization. In 1849, archaeologist Austin Henry Layard unearthed tablets in Nineveh, Iraq, dating back to 3000 BC. Zecharia Sitchin spent decades on those tablets and reached his conclusion. The Anunnaki were aliens from a planet called Nibiru. Sitchin's theory has a central problem. Anunnaki doesn't mean those from heaven to earth. It means princely blood, seed of Anu. But something in those tablets resists dismissal. In 2015, a tablet revealed precise calculations for Jupiter's orbit. Those calculations were 1,400 years ahead of Europe. 1,400 years. In astronomy, on clay. That leap fuels the theory, not the tablets, but the impossible speed at which Sumer went from simple villages to civilization. And while Sumer wrote about sky beings on clay, a tribe in Mali was guarding an astronomical secret the modern world hadn't found. The Dogon live in Mali, isolated, no telescopes, no universities, no real outside contact until the 20th century came along. In the 1930s, anthropologists Grial and Dieterlen traveled to the Dogon and spent years earning the elders' trust. What the elders described was so surprising that both researchers feared they wouldn't be believed if they published any of it. The Dogon described Sirius as a double system, an invisible companion orbiting it every 50 years, precisely 50 every time. They named it Po-Tolo, orbit, elliptical, density, impossible weight for its size, all described in extraordinary ritual detail. Sirius B was photographed in 1970, a white dwarf, its orbit around Sirius exactly 50 years, without any variation. The Dogon knew all this without any telescope, and said it came from the Nomo, beings who descended from Sirius in arcs of fire. Sagan investigated and concluded the Dogon likely absorbed this from Western astronomers before Griol's visit ever took place. Van Beek visited later and found most Dogon members didn't know the astronomical details Griol had carefully documented at all. Robert Temple countered in 1976. Data this precise cannot emerge from casual contact with Western science at all. The Dogon debate was never resolved, and that word, never, is where this gets more interesting than any simple answer could be. So we arrive at the question nobody can avoid after seeing all of this. If it wasn't aliens, then what on earth actually was it? The answer begins in a neuroscience lab, and it is at the very same time deeply disappointing and absolutely fascinating. The brain has a system called agency detection, an ancient evolutionary mechanism, the most critical one our species ever had. Its function. When something happens around you, the brain automatically asks, is there someone behind this? Is there any intent? Hear a noise in the dark, and your brain doesn't ask, was that the wind? It asks, who's there? That tendency saved countless lives. The problem, this system has no filter. It sees agency in everything. Storms, disease, failed harvests, anything unexplained. When you see agency in something from the sky that brings knowledge, something vast, the brain immediately creates a category. Jung went deeper. The unconscious holds universal structures called archetypes that emerge from our shared mental architecture. The luminous sky being, the creator who teaches, the guardian of forbidden knowledge. Not invented, generated by the brain itself. If the brain is the same in Tokyo, Cairo, Palenque, and Timbuktu, the same gods make sense. No gods would be the real surprise. But wait, that resolves similar myths. It doesn't resolve impossible knowledge, Sirius B, Jupiter's orbit, or the Sumerian leap. Here science offers a different answer, and a far less glamorous one. The answer? Systematic observation across many generations. No miraculous Sumerian leap, just centuries of observation by priests who spent their whole lives watching only the night sky. It seems impossible only because intermediate records were lost. Knowledge built step by step. Those steps simply didn't survive. The Dogon live where Sirius has been central for millennia, generations passing astronomical knowledge via oral tradition. And the Dog? The enormous eyes are likely stylized Inuit snow goggles, a real object arriving in Japan via the Bering Strait. But here's what science can't resolve cleanly. Why so specific? Helmets? Suits? Technical objects? Across cultures that never met? The honest answer from modern archaeology: we don't know everything. Real gaps exist. And real gaps beat easy answers every time. Right here, in the space between what we know and what we don't, the question from the opening of this video comes roaring back. Remember the goggle-wearing figure that opened this? Was there someone inside that suit, or a mind that needed to invent someone? So here is the answer. No aliens. No secret civilization passing knowledge around. What existed was far older than any of that. there was the human brain, its fears, its need for patterns, its power to turn the unknown into narrative and then into stone. 5 civilizations drew the same being not because they saw the same thing, but because they had the same mind. And it repeats. When it meets something beyond its understanding, it creates a superior being to explain it. Every time. No exceptions. Ever. What makes this remarkable? The process never stopped. Seeing any strange light today, we do what the German craftsman once did. Von Däniken's question in 1968 was wrong. Gods or aliens? That was never actually what this whole story was about. The real question, what does it say about us that we needed to invent both? That answer is more interesting than any alien theory. In every culture studied, sky beings arrive at the exact moment civilization makes its greatest leap forward, always exactly then. As if the superior being always reflected what that people was becoming, the helmeted god was the human looking straight forward. What do you think? 5 unconnected civilizations, the same sky beings? Does that reveal more about us than about outer space? If you enjoyed this story, subscribe. There are plenty more where this came from. See you in the next one coming up very soon.